live button, so let's wait for the stream to fire up all across the fruited plains of the internet. Before we go ahead and get started, it's a beautiful Monday, and we've got a full week and a full day, and we were just laughing at the conversation I was having with nobody over on Locals. I thought I was talking to them, but no, I wasn't. I was just sitting here talking. All right. But hopefully the tubes are connected now that we're here. It looks like they are. That's tremendous. Let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Hello, my friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of Watching the Watchers Live. My name is Robert Govea. I am a criminal defense attorney broadcasting from the Valley of the Sun deep in downtown Phoenix, Arizona. And today, my friends, we are talking about all of the things that are hidden. We've got a lot to dig into. 4 different segments. Nefariousness afoot. Last week, we spent a lot of time talking about this FD1023 form, which was in possession of the FBI, and James Comey over from the Oversight Committee. He demanded that there be a delivery of this document to the Oversight Committee in Congress, and that was supposed to happen today. And apparently something didn't go well because the contempt proceedings are moving forward. The legislation is going to be drafted, and they're going to get together on it this week on Thursday, which is really interesting news. It's happening quickly. So they met with the FBI director. Both Christopher Wray and Jamie Raskin were there. And so we're going to listen to a press conference from them where we get 2 sides of this. And it's actually pretty shocking because Jamie Raskin comes out like he knows exactly what's going on. And then you realize he doesn't have any idea what's going on. And he steps right in it. And I'm sure you're not going to hear about it in the media, but even they were asking him questions like, what the hell are you talking about here, bro? So we'll get into all of that in the first segment. We're going to update ourselves on this Hunter Biden whistleblower, their story saying this guy is highly credible. We're going to hear James Comey talk a little bit about that. But apparently he's been working with the FBI for a long period of time. And so we'll see what the FBI says about that. We also have James Comey, who is still hitting the airwaves. He was out talking with Jen Psaki. She's back. Oh, gosh. It's been a while. But Psaki's back on the show. And she had a conversation with Comey. And guess who Comey's voting for? Not Trump. I can tell you that. So we'll go through, listen to what he had to say. In fact, he's pretty upset about Donald Trump. He's saying if Donald Trump wins, there might be consequences for people like him, which, of course, he doesn't want at all. Trump got asked a question about the 3-letter agencies, and we'll see what he said. All of that in the first segment. Before we turn our attention to the New York prosecution that's taking place with Donald Trump, here we see that one of the detectives who was involved in the investigation, somebody by the name of Jeremy Rosenberg, was suspended. Donald Trump posted about this over the weekend. Said, wow, legal experts are saying that Alvin Bragg will immediately be forced to drop his case. And that should all... Are we not on Rumble right now? I'll check that in a minute. We have Alvin Bragg. We're going to check in on that case. We've got Donald Trump. His lawyers met with the Justice Department today. You see this screenshot of him, of the lawyers walking in there, presumably to meet with Special Counsel. And Special Counsel Jack Smith is very likely to be bringing charges any minute now. I mean, it might be this week, might be next week. I don't know. But it is coming in very soon. We're going to go through the news on that. Trump responded to the audio. Last week, we had a conversation about this where Trump, apparently there was a recording with him talking to somebody else about a document that he knew was classified, which leads to criminal intent, which they say is the nail in the coffin. The walls are closing in. This is it. And so they say Trump responds to this, and Andrew Weismann is very giddy about all of this, as usual, on cable news. Now, something else was pretty interesting. News story was that Zelensky, speaking of the presidential races, said that if Donald Trump is elected, this could not be so good for Ukraine. Could be a big problem for them because maybe Trump won't write blank checks hand over fist. We've got a story about it. Donald Trump responded to some of this, saying maybe the death tolls are not honest and that if he were in charge, he could solve this relatively quickly. There was also an interesting story over the weekend. Apparently, China, in the second front of World War III, which is developing as we speak, as our leaders bumble around with idiocy, apparently ramming United States destroyers as they were involved in exercises. And so all of that we'll get to. And then lastly, we've got a J6 update because there was a news story from Just the News and they got their hands on more details. But apparently, persons of interest, people with access to data, withheld some of that data. And this corroborates the book that I was telling you about last week, which is this one called Courage Under Fire by Stephen Sund. And so he said that there were other reports that said that there was no hint of violence and there was not any likelihood that these protests would even go outside of the barricades until suddenly they did. But of course, those groups they were monitoring were other groups like the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. They should have been monitoring the FBI. But the point is that intelligence apparently was withheld. And I wanted to show you the original reports. I actually dug these out from the book. These are the special assessments that walk us through what the overture was before January 6th occurred. So we'll talk about all of that, my friends, and more. And this morning, we hit some other stories. If you were a member on the show of our community, we hit these 3 stories. You'll see segments of these coming out. But we talked about the Pentagon canceling an Air Force drag show. There was a bunch of outrage in Nevada, and they decided that that needed to go. We talked about that this morning. We also talked about in Dallas, Texas, in the great state of Texas, Dallas is now mandating pronoun use or else you're in big trouble if you work for the government there. And we also talked about this new bill that was signed into law by the governor of New Mexico, which provides all sorts of transition care and services, and it limits what people can do lest they be facing a private action, a private cause of action. So we talked about all of those stories. If you're a member, you can join at watchingthewatchers.locals.com or join as a member on YouTube. Get access to those clips right now. Otherwise, they will be published as segments later on, my friends. But we appreciate you joining as a member, and you can click watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you join us on YouTube, you can also get access to the private Telegram group, and we would love to see you there. We also have to be properly fortified before we get into all of this news. I mean, we got some heavy lifting to do, you know. But we can't do it without our field of greens. And it's nice to be a little bit, lively, a little bit lighter around the midsection, if you know what I mean. We'd all like to lose those leftover pandemic pounds, right? But how sick are you of all the ads for weight loss pills and fad diets and all that stuff, right? There's a lot of that going on. Inject this, inject that, Been there, done that. They don't work. You know what does, though? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and the weight would probably fall right off. But vegetables, not a fan. And fruit, who's got time to prepare that every day? I don't. Instead, let's talk about Field of Greens. Now, Field of Greens is a science-backed formula. Very specific fruits and vegetables that you won't find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism so you burn calories faster and lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look and feel healthier fast, but the better proof comes at your next checkup when your doctor says, wow, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. So let's get you started. Go on over, open up a new tab, go on over to fieldofgreens.com. When you get there, there's tons of good stuff. Load up your cart, save 15% off your first order with code Robert, and be healthy. Remember, the vegetables want to be eaten, man. Make their life purposeful. Eat your greens. You'll feel better for it. All right, so let's get into it, my friends, because we do have some news. No, chocolate does not count as a vegetable. No, it doesn't count. Some days it does, maybe like on Saturdays or Sundays, but no, not most of the days. Contempt of the FBI is the next story. Christopher Wray decides not to bring over the FD1023 form. We thought he was going to. He brought a portion of it over, but he didn't leave it with Congress, and he left major portions of it redacted. And so James Comey said, that's not what we asked for there, FBI. We wanted it all. We wanted the document dropped on my desk, unredacted, pursuant to a valid subpoena issued by Congress, and you have not done that. Therefore, contempt proceedings shall move forward. Now, there is a press briefing that we will see that details exactly what happened. James Comey and Jamie Raskin, both on the Oversight Committee, evidently sat down with FBI Director Christopher Wray to discuss this document, which was brought to our attention by whistleblowers and by other people who say the FBI is in possession of this document, which implicates the Biden crime family in a $5 million quid pro quo scheme with some foreign people who wanted something done. Biden was VP. He got it done. We know the form exists. The FBI has told us so. And so now, today was the day when they were going to bring it to our attention. Comey posts this on Twitter after the meeting. Apparently, didn't go so well. Says the FBI confirmed the unclassified record alleging then VP Biden engaged in a $5 million bribery scheme is from a highly credible informant and being used in an ongoing investigation. Right now, let's put a pin in that for a minute. Being used in an ongoing investigation is a very key phrase here, because this is going to be the justification that the FBI uses to not give the document over. They're going to say, no, we can't give it. We'd love to give it to you. I mean, we have it. It's right here. And we'd love to just flip it right over to you. But we're using it, man. We're using this thing and we need it. We can't give it to you. So it's used in an ongoing investigation, right? Because if an investigation was closed and done, and the FBI had conducted a thorough analysis and they've clearly concluded that there was no criminality at all, we should have a closed file. We should have a decision to decline prosecution, right? We should have some evidence, some documents about this. It should be done. And we should be able to see it and verify it and vet it and say, wow, FBI, you did a great job. I mean, it's closed. But that's not what's happening here. Now, Jamie Raskin thinks it is. And I want to be very careful about parsing through this. So we're going to put a pin in this, used in an ongoing investigation. Now, when the FBI came over there, they brought it with them. And they're like, you want to see it? Here, I'll show it to you real fast. They're like, here you go. Ready? Did you see it? No, I didn't see it. Can I see it again? Sorry, you got one shot. I brought it. I brought it here, right? You saw me brought it, right? Adam Schiff? Right, Jamie? No, I brought the document. All right, well, we're out of here. Pack it up. Says he refused to hand over the document. Therefore, I will hold Director Wray in contempt of Congress. Perfect. Now, they put out a more formal statement here. They said the House Committee on the Oversight and Accountability, Chairman James Comey, representative from Kentucky, issued the following statement after receiving a briefing from the FBI about the unclassified record alleging then Vice President Joe engaged in a $5 million bribery scheme with foreign nationals in exchange for certain actions. The official statement from Comey says, today, FBI officials confirm that the unclassified FBI-generated record has not been disproven, and stated several times the information contained within it is currently being used in an ongoing investigation. The confidential human source who provided information about then VP Biden being involved in a criminal bribery scheme is a trusted, highly credible informant who has been used by the FBI for years. These are facts, and no amount of spin and frankly lies from the White House or Democrats can change this. I think we're going to hear him read this statement in a minute. At the briefing, the FBI again refused to hand over the unclassified record to the custody of the House Oversight Committee, and we will now initiate contempt of Congress proceedings. Given the severity and the complexity of the allegations contained within this record, Congress must investigate further. Americans have lost trust in the FBI's ability to enforce the law impartially and demand answers, transparency, and accountability. Let's say that again. The Oversight Committee must follow the facts for the American people and ensure the federal government is held accountable. So that is from Comey. Now, they met there in D.C., presumably. Christopher Wray rolled out of bed, threw some water in his hair. He's like, ugh, these congressional idiots. Again, it's Monday. Got back on his private plane, flew out for Vegas. I think he was there last week, hanging out with Hunty. And they come out, and now this is interesting. We're going to see two people speak at this press briefing. One is going to be Representative Comey here. He's going to go for about 5-6 minutes, and we'll parse through it. And then Raskin is going to come out. These are two members on the same oversight committee. Presumably, I was thinking that they were in the same briefing, that they sat there and listened to the same presentation from the FBI. But we're going to hear two different stories in a minute. And Raskin's is going to be very convincing when we hear him speak. He's going to just tell us this nice little story that has nothing to do, apparently, with this case. So this is Representative James Comey after the briefing. He comes out first, and Raskin is nowhere to be found. So he's not listening to any of this yet. Here is Comey.
An ongoing investigation. The confidential human source who provided information about then Vice President Biden being involved in a criminal bribery scheme is a trusted, highly credible informant who has been used by the FBI for over 10 years and has been paid over six figures.
6 figures, baby. Money.
These are facts.
Woo.
And no amount of spin and frankly lies from the White House or congressional Democrats can change this information. At the briefing, the FBI again refused to hand over the unclassified record to the custody of the House Oversight Committee.
You can see it.
And we will now initiate contempt of Congress hearings this Thursday.
It's Thursday, baby. Mark
Given
your calendars.
the severity and complexity of the allegations contained within this record, Congress must investigate further. Americans have lost trust in the FBI's ability to enforce the law impartially and demand answers, transparency, and accountability. The investigation is not dead. This is only the beginning. It appears this investigation is part of an ongoing investigation, which I assume is in Delaware.
Okay, so pausing on this for a brief moment. We have to ask ourselves, what are we not seeing here? What are we missing? There are things that we can infer. Remember that if there is an open investigation into the Biden family, into Joe Biden himself, that would be a conflict of interest. We would need a special counsel for something like that, which is exactly why we have a special counsel who's investigating Joe Biden for his classified documents right now. Because it's too much of a conflict. You need somebody else to do that. So the fact that there isn't another special counsel investigating Joe Biden means that whatever the FBI has or whatever the DOJ has reviewed, they haven't gotten to that level. It hasn't gotten to that threshold that would justify a formal prosecution of the executive branch by the executive branch, which means you got to separate that out with special counsel. That would be what you would expect to see if there was something else going on. Otherwise, that investigation would be a conflict and it would be illegitimate, right? So from that, we can presume that there are no other open investigations into Joe Biden. We also know that that same standard they do not adhere to when it comes to prosecutions of Biden's family, like Hunty-Poo. Here, they treat him like he is just a regular old defendant and not the president's son who gets away with everything. He is just another person, and that's why they don't need a special counsel for that investigation. That can go through the regular chain of command at the DOJ, which is through the U.S. attorney, which is David Weiss, the same guy we've talked a lot about here, as they constantly claim he's legitimate because he was appointed by Donald Trump. They say he was appointed by Trump. He was appointed by Trump. Therefore, he's legitimate as though he's a Trumper, which there's never been any evidence of that. The reason they kept him and didn't keep all of the other U.S. attorneys is because, I would assume, is he is a friendly in that capacity. And they've got him under lock and key, which, according to many whistleblowers, has been the case. So now what Comey is telling us about, he's saying we can't know exactly. The FBI came in and they said, well, you can see portions of this. I can't show you it exactly. But because I can't give this to you, I need a reason to say I can't give it to you. The only good one that I can come up with from my legal team is that it's part of an ongoing investigation. What investigation? We can't pin it in a special counsel bucket because there really isn't one. Presumably, because it's just a classified documents bucket that the current special counsel is working on. And it can't, the only other place it fits, in other words, is with Hunter, is in Delaware. And so that's where he's making this leap. Now, he doesn't walk us through all of that, but that's what's going on in his head. It's part of an ongoing investigation. The only place it fits is part of the Hunter investigation, meaning that maybe charges are still coming. They are actually working on this. They're not actually just sitting on the document.
The Oversight Committee will follow the facts and be transparent to the American people with our findings. I'll be happy to answer a couple questions. Yes, sir.
Are we talking about, Congressman Comer, are we talking about just one document, or are we talking about several documents? And what could these documents actually hold? Could they end up showing more Biden family business dealings with other countries?
This document was dated, I think you all know this, from the subpoena in July 30th, 2020. The claims made in the document are consistent with what we found and disclosed to you all in Romania. It suggests a pattern of bribery where payments would be made through shell accounts and multiple banks. And there's a term for that. It's called money laundering.
Yeah.
And that, again, is what the majority of the suspicious activity reports also said.
And we've seen all the documents,
So we
shell
feel
company
that
after
this-
shell companies, Rosemont Seneca to Bohan, Harvest Advisors, and so on, all the way down the chain of command. RHB1, RHB2, and so on and so forth until it ended up in somebody's bank account with the last name Biden.
Accusation is consistent with a pattern that we're seeing, frankly, in other countries too.
And
Yes.
multiple documents?
We believe there are multiple documents.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
why do you need the document in hand? You just got a chance to view it, so why do you need it, and why move forward with contempt when the FBI says they're cooperating in good faith?
Well, let's just look at what I've read in a lot of the media accounts, and with statements that Ian Sims has made from the White House that there's no merit to this. This is crazy. This is a conspiracy theory. And you're just supposed to take my word or the FBI's word. I'm supposed to take the FBI's word that they're investigating this, or that you're going to write that the source is unverified, or whatever. Remember, the main reason they're not wanting to make this public is because they're concerned about the source, the highly credible, and I haven't read that in a lot of outlets, the highly credible source that's been with the Bureau since the Obama administration. One more question. What's that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Comer. In addition to initiating contempt proceedings, do you plan to, or do you expect in the near future, refer criminal charges to the DOJ, despite the DOJ?
Right now we want the Form 1023. We believe, due to the fact that it is not classified, this is not a classified document, that this is an important part of our investigation, and we want to have this document in hand. I'll do one more. Yeah. All right. All I know is there's an ongoing investigation. They confirmed there's an ongoing investigation using this information. I assume that ongoing investigation is in Delaware. I don't know that, but I assume that.
Can you break down why that's your assumption?
I'm sorry?
Can you break down why that's your assumption, or what information you have to support that?
Say it one more time.
The question is, can you break down why you have that assumption? Why do you think it is that way?
Can you break down why that's your assumption and what information you have to support that's based in Delaware?
I assume it's Delaware. I'll put it like that.
What country?
Yeah, he's not going to take the time to explain it, but there's basically nowhere else for it to go. If it was an investigation into Joe Biden, you would imagine that it would be a special counsel. It's not, so where else could it go? The only open investigation is with the U.S. Attorney in Delaware. Unless they have another open investigation into Hunter or into Joe that we don't know about, right? Which would also be a whole nother news story. If they said, no, it's actually not the Delaware investigation, it's the New Mexico investigation, or it's a federal investigation related to FARA or to the gun somewhere else or whatever. But we don't know that yet. So that would be a whole separate game. So the only place it fits right now is with Delaware.
Or national?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, could
Yes.
you take notes today? Were you able to take notes in there?
I took notes on the unclassified portion, but then there was a classified portion I didn't take
And
notes on.
if you want to have follow-up briefings from the FBI on this, again.
The ball's in the FBI's court. Thank you all very much.
All right, so that is Comer.
All right, Representative Comer there speaking after.
Comer, and then now Raskin's going to come right out. And so Raskin, we're going to see, didn't hear any of that. And we're waiting for him. Comer leaves. And here comes Raskin now. He's going to come barreling out of this door. And he's going to give us an update on what's happening. Now,
we are going to have
just to be clear, where we pick up on this, we had just heard from Comer that this is part of an ongoing investigation. That's why we cannot see the FD1023. Right? Open investigation. Because we just got out of the same briefing. He just left the same room that Comer left on the same committee. Listen to what he says.
Representative Raskin speak right now after reviewing as well. Let's hear from him as well.
High-level delegation to comply with the oversight majority's demand for us to see this document. We saw the document, and the FBI team actually went way beyond showing us the document to explain the historical and prosecutorial and legal context of the document. And from that, what I learned was that Attorney General Barr named Scott Brady, who was the U.S. Attorney for Western Pennsylvania, to head up a group of prosecutors and FBI agents who would look into all of the allegations related to Ukraine. As Attorney General Barr himself put it, we have to take everything coming from Ukraine with a grain of salt.
Barr said it, so Barr's in charge now. Barr in charge of Scott, in charge of other prosecutors, wanted to keep tabs on Ukraine. This was before the invasion.
But after Rudy Giuliani surfaced these allegations, this group was appointed, and they looked into the Form 1023, and this group was created in June. And spent the summer on it, and as I understand it, in August determined that there was no grounds to escalate from an initial assessment to a preliminary investigation.
Wow, okay.
And the standard for moving from an assessment to a preliminary investigation in FBI prosecutorial protocol is whether there are articulable facts giving rise to suspicion of criminal activity.
Wow, okay, so very reasonable explanation. And of course, we see Jamie Raskin here. He's going through chemotherapy. He's got cancer, and that explains what he's wearing on his head. And certainly he looks a little bit tired and maybe a little bit worn out. But he's giving us what he just heard. He was in there, and he said, oh, no. The FBI came in here, and they explained what this form was, okay? This form has already been reviewed. In fact, you want to know who reviewed it? Not even the FBI. Bill Barr did. Bill Barr sent it to Scott. Scott sent it to other prosecutors, and they just reviewed it. They looked at it as part of the original process, and they said there's nothing here. There's nothing here to elevate it from step 1 to step 2, from just an investigation into a part 2 investigation, from an initial inquiry into a preliminary whatever, right? From one phase to the next. And so you go, wow, what a great explanation. Damn, are you serious? That's it? This whole thing is just, I guess it's all just done. I mean, I guess everything James Comer told us was totally wrong, because here we thought nobody at the FBI did anything with this document. They just got it, sat on it. A whistleblower turned it in. They said, hey, this is a big problem. FBI said, wow, you're right. We are going to look into it. They did a preliminary investigation, decided, you know what, there's nothing here. That is accounted for. This is accounted for. There's nothing. They closed their file. We reviewed it. Agent so-and-so did this. Closed file. Biden's exonerated. FD1023 is closed. So if that's the case, right, there should be no problem just giving the document over, if it's just as he just explained. But I'm still scratching my head listening to this, wondering how he could say that if the investigation is still open, because Comer just came out and said it was. So we're hearing two different stories here. Were they in the same briefing?
So they apparently decided that there was not, and they called an end to the investigation.
That's it.
Now recall that this is under Attorney General William Barr and
Trump.
his hand-picked prosecutor, Mr. Brady, who was a Trump appointee. They were the ones who decided that there was no grounds further based on what this confidential human source reported from a conversation with another person. They decided there was no grounds to escalate this up the investigative prosecutorial chain. So if there's a complaint, the complaint is with Attorney General William Barr, the Trump Justice Department, and the team that the Trump administration appointed to look into it. But I'm just surprised that my colleagues want to try to litigate this in public, much less hold the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation in contempt for complying with their request when there was a whole process that was undertaken, and that process came to its natural end, as I understand it.
Came to its natural end, as I understand it, except Comer just said it didn't. Comer just said there's an ongoing investigation, and that's the reason why he couldn't have the document. If it had come to an end, and there was no conclusion, or there was a great conclusion, and it was a non-prosecution conclusion, why wouldn't we just get the document? So he wants to come out here. I mean, it's like talking points, but he doesn't even know the facts of the case. This is like somebody hands you somebody else's homework or something, and you try to give the oral arguments on it, and it's the wrong book or something. You're talking about the wrong thing. Trump assigned Barr and Scott and a group of other prosecutors to go do all of this thing that never actually happened? What? Here he is. Now watch, the media caught this.
Yes.
So in your opinion, there was no criminal charges that you see?
Not on this question.
What you saw today?
Well, there were definitely, not only were there no criminal charges, there was no escalation of the FBI's investigation that was ordered by Scott Brady or by Attorney General William Barr. They all signed off on ending that investigation.
Wow.
So
it's closed then, I guess. They signed off on it. That means we can see those documents too. That's fine. That's great. I'm fine seeing documents that exonerate Joe Biden. I have no problem with that. If they're there, they should be available for us, no?
Yeah, remember, what we're talking about here is a confidential human source reporting a conversation with someone else. So we're talking about is secondhand hearsay, and they did whatever investigative due diligence was called for in that assessment period, and they found no reason to escalate it from an assessment to a so-called preliminary investigation, and after that comes a full-blown investigation.
Okay.
Yes, and then I'll conclude.
Thank you very much. So, from what you're saying, is Chairman Comer not telling the truth in that there's an ongoing FBI investigation into this allegation that then Vice President Biden took a bribe from a foreign official?
What?
Wait,
He said it was an ongoing
You said it was an ongoing investigation, that they're still investigating.
okay, but I'm not privy to what the chairman had to say. There has certainly been published reports that there is an ongoing investigation in Delaware by the U.S. Attorney, I believe related to Hunter Biden.
Oh,
that's all.
Oh, so we're going to go back and hit that again. Okay, the media, if you couldn't hear the question, very good question, very astute question from the media. They say, wait a minute, Jamie, this is strange. This is really strange. You know, we just got done listening to James Comer. He told us that the investigation was ongoing. So are you calling him a liar? And look at Raskin's face, man. He's like, what? What do you mean ongoing investigation? I just came out here and told you the whole thing was closed. That's why I know it's a big nothing burger. You're telling me that it's still open? He has no idea what he's talking about. He must have been asleep in there. I don't know what is going on with him. But the media says you're calling him a liar then, right? Because if this is closed, he says it's open. So who's telling the truth, you or him?
From an assessment to a so-called preliminary investigation. And after that comes a
Watch all
full-blown
this
investigation.
confidence.
Yes.
All
and then I'll
gone.
Thank you very much. So, From what you're saying, is Chairman Comer not telling the truth in that there's an ongoing FBI investigation into this allegation that then Vice President Biden took a bribe from a foreign official?
Uh-oh.
Wait, say,
He said it was an ongoing
You said there's an ongoing
investigation.
investigation, that they're still investigating.
okay, but
Recalibrate.
Well, I'm not privy to what the chairman had to say. There has certainly been
No, but you were in the briefing. Were you in a different room? What were you doing in there?
published reports that there is an ongoing investigation in Delaware by the U.S. Attorney, I believe, related to Hunter Biden.
Yes, bingo, you got it. And that's the reason why they're not giving the document over. So Raskin's entire argument gets obliterated right there. He comes out and says these Republicans are just so full of crap and garbage. They're just crying a hissy fit because of a closed investigation that they want a document over. And the media is saying it's not closed though, dummy, is it?
That's all that I know.
Any indication that this document that you guys were briefed on today is part of an ongoing investigation?
Question was, so the FBI has not given you any indication that the document that is being requested today is part of an ongoing investigation. Is that right?
Related to Hunter Biden. That's all that I know.
Any indication that this document that you guys were briefed on today is part of an ongoing investigation?
What I know is that the
Busted, buddy.
FBI Department of Justice team under William Barr and Scott Brady in the Western District of Pennsylvania terminated the investigation. They said there were no grounds for further investigative steps, so they ended that. Now,
so then why can't we see the document? If the investigation is closed and Bill Barr terminated it, which is a whole nother question, if this document goes back to 2020 and Bill Barr was in there terminating this when the FBI was in possession of a document that they knew implicated Joe Biden, and Bill Barr terminated something that would have changed the course of the election, I would imagine. FBI's in possession of a $5 million claim that Joe Biden is quid pro quoing with some foreign company. Bill Barr terminates that from a credible whistleblower, from a credible source that has been paid 6 figures from the FBI. So that's interesting in and of itself. That opens up a whole other can of worms. But I don't even know what the heck he's talking about because Comer said it was still open. And if Jamie was right and Comer was wrong, then the justification for not turning over the FD1023 would be different. The justification is it's part of an ongoing investigation, which means we got to take the FBI's word for it. There is an ongoing investigation. So Raskin's telling us about something. I don't even know what he's talking about.
in terms of another investigation, I can't speak to that. I've seen nothing about that, and other than published reports.
Okay, but the reason the form can't be delivered is because of an ongoing investigation. It has not been concluded, as you came out here and tried to sell to everybody, these people. He's got his talking points. It all got delivered in an email from his intern, and he went out to try to deliver it. He's like, they're not going to ask me any questions. I'm a cancer patient here. And then they ask him questions, and now he's like, I don't know anything about it. I was asleep.
No grounds for further investigative steps. So they ended that. Now, in terms of another investigation, I can't speak to that. I have seen nothing about that, and other than published reports. So,
guess what we're asking this document in particular? Is it part of an ongoing?
Comer said that it was part of
All
an
the
ongoing
media.
investigation, and that's what he learned.
okay, but then I must have missed that because I've not heard that this is part of any ongoing investigation.
Oh, man.
So-
I have not. He's totally busted. What were you doing in there? You got to stop playing Candy Crush on your phone, Jamie.
Is it just the money that was paid to Hunter Biden from the regional board, or what is the actual?
I can't go into the details of it.
Because I don't know anything about
remember, I'm abstracting from the particulars of this case. We're talking about something pretty extraordinary here, which is an FBI document that is a report of a confidential human informant. And the FBI depends on these people in order to make their cases. And so obviously they are categorically, absolutely interested in maintaining the confidentiality
Now we go back to policy.
of these people's identities. And their identities can obviously be deduced from certain kinds of facts if you start releasing interview documents that they've confided in the FBI about. So we want to be very careful about that. And I would think that that's not a partisan issue. That's something all of us should agree to. Yes.
We should all agree to it, right? He switches. He can't answer anything concrete about what's happening. So he goes back into policy mode. We all should care about protecting whistleblowers and all. Okay, we all do. Nobody's saying anything about that. In fact, there's been all sorts of options for this. They've even talked about redacting the name and anything that's identifiable. And Comer was perfectly okay with that. So it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with these people just wanting to hide bad evidence of their candidate.
Briefing you today did confirm that it is the document released.
All right, Senator Raskin there speak.
Representative, they should get some other anchors over there on Fox News. It's a rep, not a senator. All right. So that is the update over from the Oversight Committee. Apparently they are not getting a document, and the document comes from our friend who is a highly credible whistleblower. Christopher Wray and others got this information from a person who apparently is deemed to be highly credible. And they've been using this person since the Obama administration. Here is the exclusive over from some news agency. Says that the individual behind the information that Joe Biden was involved in a criminal bribery scheme with a foreign national is highly credible. Been used as a human source for multiple matters by the FBI, all the way dating back into the Obama administration. They say this person in particular approached Chairman James Comey and Senator Chuck Grassley. They were approached by a whistleblower alleging that the FBI was in possession of a document in FD1023 form, look, dated from June 30th, 2020. Very important date and time. And if Raskin, as he just told us, if it is true that Bill Barr did get involved in this in some way and severed the investigation, the question is why? It seems like that would be a pretty strange thing to do if you're in the middle of an election and a whistleblower came out and wanted the FBI to do something about this before this man became president. So why would he interfere if that is true? It explicitly detailed information provided by a CHS alleging Biden, while serving as VP, was involved in a $5 million bribery scheme in exchange for foreign policy changes. A source familiar told Fox News that the confidential CHS who provided the information was, quote, a pre-existing FBI source, had been used in multiple investigative matters separate from the Biden information. Said that the CHS was used by the FBI, quote, at least several years before the generation of the June 2020 document. The source also said that this CHS in particular has, quote, consistently been reviewed by the FBI and, quote, has been found to be highly credible. Said this person also participated in investigations during the Obama administrations. Grassley reached out, Comer reached out, and so we're still trying to find out more about this person. But we do know the FBI is doing everything they can to keep it buried, and they do not want any repercussions coming back their way. And how do we know that? Well, former director James Comey was out there talking with that one person that we remember here from some time ago, Jen Psaki. She ended up on MSNBC, and she's back. Psaki sat down with former FBI Director James Comey and asked him about his plans for 2024. Who are you going to be voting for there, Jim?
You were a Republican most of your life, but voted for, and you may still consider yourself one, but voted for Biden in
No, I don't.
2020.
No.
Do you intend to vote for him again, or is there anyone on the Republican side you might consider if it's not Trump?
It has to be Joe Biden.
Oh.
And I'm glad he's willing to serve. It has to be somebody committed to the rule of law, committed to the values of this country. And I'm not talking about policy. People can disagree about policy. There are things above those disagreements that all of us should think about the same way. The president must be someone who abides the law and our Constitution. And there's no one else but Joe Biden.
No one else but Joe Biden, the lawbringer, America. The man who stands up for the Constitution, certainly doesn't do anything to try to impinge upon free speech or, the Second Amendment or things like your property rights or, anything else that we've been talking about here on this channel for years now. No, he's the person who stands up for it. He doesn't just pass things like, student loan bills through executive order that have to go all the way up to the Supreme Court, or have the CDC say, this is our property and our business now. And if you do stuff, you're illegal and all the things, right? The purveyor of American constitutional justice. And what's so funny about this is, of course, he's a private citizen now and he's free to do what he wants. But I would imagine that just like all of the other people like Morell and the CIA, ex-CIA people who all signed on to that 51 signature letter that was supposed to be truthful and honest and legitimate, turned out to be literal disinformation propagated by our own intelligence agencies upon us. They're still part of this. They know Joe Biden's a placeholder. They know he is an empty vessel that they move from room to room. All right, here you go, Joe. All right, here you go, Joe. And then he still trips over a sandbag. So it has to be Joe, which means that the FBI, I would expect to see the same shenanigans that we saw in 2016, the same shenanigans we saw in 2020. We're probably going to see them again in 2024 because we have a pattern now. And we're asking ourselves, what are the Republicans going to do about it now that the FBI is aligning themselves with Joe? So here is another reason why Comey is so in bed with Joe and Hunty, because repercussions coming his direction for all of his past misdeeds, for his ineptitude and maliciousness in running the FBI, there may be a bill to pay. There may be consequences due. And he certainly does not want that to happen at all.
You've said that Trump poses a near existential threat to the rule of law. And this is something, similar language that I hear privately from national security officials, some people you and I both know.
And my friends on Facebook, I have this text group and they're all concerned. They're posting every day, we're all going to die.
Will say this privately about what a second term could mean. But tell me a little bit about the specifics of what he could try to do. What do you mean by that?
Well, think about what 4 years of a retribution presidency might look like.
Amazing.
He could order the investigation and prosecution of individuals who he sees as enemies. I'm sure I'm on the enemies list.
Well, did you undermine American democracy by allowing and maybe colluding with your agency to interfere with the justice process and elections in America? That could be a problem. We don't like that.
Because the president constitutionally does oversee the executive branch entirely, which includes the Department of Justice, prosecutors and investigators. And so he could direct that individuals be pursued. He could also direct all kinds of other conduct that people would maybe take to court to try to stop. But who enforces court orders? Mm-hmm. Mostly the United States Marshals Service, which is part of the executive branch and reports to the president. And so President Trump could say, I don't care what the Supreme Court says or these district judges say. I'm telling the Marshal Service, don't enforce the court order. And so our Constitution really does give a rogue president, which is what this would be, tremendous power to destroy. And so that's why I'm trying to warn people. Given the way he said he intends to operate if he's reelected, this will be something we could never have imagined.
Jim's a little nervous.
It seems like science fiction in a way. But it's what another 4 years of Donald Trump really promises, which is why people criticize CNN for their town hall. I want the American people to stare at the threat that we're facing and understand that they cannot take the next election off.
You're
pretty nervous there from former Director James Comey out in the White House. And of course, he's out there shilling his anti-Trump speech. And it is concerning. He is literally telling us, he's telegraphing that this is an existential threat for the FBI. It's an existential threat for the Justice Department. He thinks it's an existential threat for the country. And so these people, they don't leave without leverage. They keep those relationships. We saw what happened with Jim Baker, for example, who used to work at the FBI, left, went over to Twitter. Now I don't know where he is, probably another big tech company. Because they just protect their own. They do their time, then they exit. Everybody else covers for them until there's a new batch of people who do it again and then exit, and then they get covered for. There's a system in place. And the FBI, former FBI director, is telegraphing right now that this is an existential crisis to them. So what they did in 2020 with the cover-up of the Hunter Biden laptop story, what they did in 2016 with Crossfire Hurricane and trying to frame Trump with colluding with the Russians that dogged his entire first presidency, I wouldn't doubt that they try it again. And so that, my friends, is what's happening in Congress and with the FBI. It's getting pretty messy over there. And so on Thursday, we'll be back. Of course, we're not done for the day, but on Thursday, we'll be back. So apparently there's going to happen. There'll be some proceedings that take place. My guess is they draft legislation and then have a hearing and then vote on it to hold somebody in contempt. So I'm guessing that's what we're going to see back here on Thursday. So thanks for being subscribed and thanks for liking this video wherever it is you're watching it. All right, but we've got some more business to attend to. And let's see what else is happening. The detective who investigated Donald Trump and who's involved in the New York prosecution has been suspended. He goes by the name of Jeremy Rosenberg, and he apparently got a little close with Michael Cohen, another key witness in the Trump prosecution brought by Alvin Bragg. We also have Donald Trump and his lawyers appearing in D.C., meeting with Special Counsel Jack Smith. Presumably, this case is getting close to something happening, either charges being filed or charges not being filed. If I had to guess, it would be the former. And we've got some reaction from Trump responding to what people are saying is the final nail in the coffin for Trump as usual, which is the audio recording. He responded to that. But first, let's learn more about this guy. Jeremy Rosenberg, detective who was involved in the investigation that was brought by Bragg. We can take a look at this article from the New York Post. Tells us a Bragg detective called Jeremy Rosenberg was suspended for his Michael Cohen ties. More on this. Says a supervising detective involved in the DA Bragg prosecution has been suspended for his contact with a former lawyer named Michael Cohen. Guy's name is Jeremy Rosenberg. He investigates financial crimes for Bragg, had his gun removed recently for his interactions with Cohen. Give me your gun and your badge, Jeremy. But Sarge, now! The office is conducting a review of an investigator's compliance with the internal office protocols. Uh-oh. Breach of protocol. Out of Bragg's office? You're kidding. A law enforcement source said Bragg's office is looking for how Rosenberg shared communications about Cohen with the office. Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, said, hey, hold on a minute. The interactions between Rosenberg, Michael Cohen, and myself were always professional and focused on Cohen's personal security, which we appreciated. Defense lawyer and former Manhattan prosecutor Mark Betterow said the suspension might not affect the case against Trump, but the defense probably wants to know about it. Yeah, you bet. It might not affect the case, but certainly from a defense standpoint, they would want to know about the relationship, definitely. What did they talk about, and did this detective have anything that fits the form of a disclosure to the defense? But he's out, apparently. Critics ripped the suspension as an extremely political move by Bragg. The only other place I could compare this to is the FBI, said a retired detective. Rosenberg also assisted in the prosecution of Steve Bannon in the $15 million border wall, what they call a scam. Trump pardoned him. Rosenberg, no comment when they called him for a question. He recently worked on cryptocurrency investigation and drug deals on the dark web. And Bragg, of course, has indicted Trump for fake crimes out of New York City. So that is Jeremy Rosenberg. And Donald Trump posted about this on True Social. And he said the following. He said, wow! Legal experts are saying that Alvin Bragg will be immediately forced to drop his weak and disparaged case against, quote, Trump, because his top investigator, Jeremy Rosenberg, corruptly colluded with a disgraced, disbarred, and convicted felon and perjurer in attempting to frame me with a crime that doesn't even exist. They apparently became close friends with lifestyle money spent, a crime. This on top of a Clinton lawyer turned prosecutor called Mark Pomerantz illegally writing a book on the case. Posted by Trump on True Social. Now, my spidey senses went a little haywire when I read this, because I remember that Judge Juan Merchan told Trump specifically to be very careful with what he talks about. And I don't know if there's anything in this that is what the judge would deem to be sensitive information. Is there new information in this message that is not public, like this lifestyle money? Did we get that from something that happened within the case? And if so, and Trump communicated that outside of the case in violation of the court order, is that going to be a problem for Trump? Is this judge going to do something about it? In other words, I might expect to see a filing by Alvin Bragg saying, Judge, do something about this. Sanction Trump for that tweet or that truth. Time will tell. Now, in other Trump prosecutions, we've got some interesting things developing. Apparently, the grand jury is convening this week in D.C. NBC News is about as giddy as they can be. They've been waiting for this, just waiting, salivating. The grand jury in the Trump classified documents case is expected to meet this week after a coming hiatus. Grand jury that has been hearing evidence might make a decision, according to multiple people familiar with the investigation. Prosecutors working for Jack Smith have been presenting the grand jury with evidence and testimony for months, but activity appears to have slowed in recent weeks based upon people who were sitting outside the courthouse and watching. And we know Trump's lawyers showed up there today. It's unclear whether prosecutors are prepared to seek an indictment. At this point, the Justice Department would not comment on the investigation. But according to reporting from NBC News, prosecutors are asking two legal questions. One, did Trump wrongfully retain classified documents after he left the White House? And did he later obstruct government efforts to retrieve them? So that would be on the one prong of this investigation. So they're going to be doing the classified documents first. I still think that they're going to be doing a whole separate investigation into January 6th and the election. If Smith decides to charge Trump, it would be the first time a former president has been charged with a federal crime. Trump says he's broken no laws and that this is a witch hunt. Now, Trump's lawyers showed up in D.C. to communicate about this. They asked the Justice Department, don't charge Trump. This is a very high stakes meeting. Jack Smith was there himself. He's leading the probe. And you see Trump's team showing up. We got Lindsey Halligan, John Rowley, James Trusty, all exit the Department of Justice in Washington. Attorneys for Trump went to the DOJ on Monday to make their case that the government should not charge Trump in connection with the documents. Halligan, Rowley, Trusty, they spent about 2 hours there at the DOJ. They left without speaking to reporters. They met with the DOJ personnel, including Jack Smith. But guess who was not there? Merrick Garland or Lisa Monaco. The Justice Department declined to comment. It's not uncommon for high-profile defense attorneys to meet with prosecutors. Two Trump advisors briefed on Monday meeting said that they could continue to believe that Smith will finalize a charging decision in the coming weeks. Advisors said they are preparing for a potential indictment of Trump, and the meeting did not change their expectations. CBS was there, and we do have a clip of that footage. Here's what it looked like as the lawyers went into the building.
We have new video into CBS News. Former President Trump's lawyers arrived at the Justice Department earlier this morning. They had requested a meeting with federal law enforcement officials. Several sources with knowledge of the investigation into the handling of classified documents say a charging decision is coming soon. We're following this story for you, and we'll bring you more information as we get it.
The decision is going to be to indict him and to charge him, because that's what all this work has been for. They are not going to give it up that easily. And so that is New York, that is D.C., and Georgia apparently is expanding their probe as well. Georgia probe broadens into other states. This one's being brought by Fannie, the fanniest of all the Fannies out there in Fulton County, Georgia. She launched an investigation more than 2 years ago. She might be bringing RICO charges. In recent days, Willis has sought information related to the Trump campaign, to their hiring of 2 firms to find voter fraud across the U.S. They say allegations here reach beyond Georgia's borders. They said 2 individuals who spoke on condition of anonymity talked candidly about this. At least 1 firm has been subpoenaed by investigators. So this one's separate. I mean, he's got 3 different pieces on the board, and they are moving all of them around as we speak. And so Trump responded to some of this stuff. He was in, I believe, Iowa with Sean Hannity, and he got asked about his reaction to the audio recording. Here's what he said.
Special counsel that's appointed, and news broke yesterday that there might be a tape recording that, quote, where you acknowledge that you understood that these were classified documents. First of all, do you know who this call may be with? Do you know anything about it?
No, I don't know anything about it. All I know is this. Everything I did was right. We have the Presidential Records Act, which I abided by 100%. Biden has 1,850 boxes with a lot of classified stuff that he's not supposed to have in his case. I have the right to declassify as president.
I don't know anything about it. What phone call, what message, don't know anything about it. I had the right to declassify. Joe Biden didn't. And so they're breaking his back over this thing, and they're not doing the same over Joe Biden. In fact, they're going to probably just paper over that whole thing, even though Joe had documents from his time as a senator. Joe had documents from his time as a VP, and he didn't have the same powers that Donald Trump did. But they're going to draw distinctions here, and the distinction, the pivot point, the hinge point is going to be obstruction, and the idea that Trump interfered after the documents were already requested. But as we've said time and again, he can make the same arguments that Bill Clinton made pursuant to the Presidential Records Act, pursuant to the declassification authorities that he's claimed he used, and other things. But we'll see what the special counsel does with this one. Now, some people are giddy as heck over this. Here is Weismann, as usual. He's just gloating as can be, and we've heard this line many times now. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. The walls are closing in. Finally, this is going to be it any day now. It could be, but even if Donald Trump is indicted, doesn't mean this thing is going anywhere. Could be as simple as Donald Trump winning the presidency, pardoning himself, and disbanding the DOJ and the FBI.
If this reporting is true, and I'm trying not to use hyperbole, this is game over.
You do that all the time, Andrew.
There's
Hello.
no way that he will not be charged. One, it's a tape recording. Even though the reporting is there are also witnesses, so there could be tape recording with witnesses. It involves not just possession of classified information, but dissemination of classified information. That puts it into a completely different ballpark when you're at the Department of Justice examining the seriousness of the violation and whether to bring charges. It also is a separate crime to disseminate versus just possess.
I like how he's talking about it as though these people at the DOJ are going through this very nonpartisan, apolitical, logical justification for this. Gosh, he's former president. Should we charge him? Should we not? I mean, let's really look at this evidence in a light most favorable to Trump. I mean, we really don't want to charge him. We're prosecutors. We're here to do justice, not to do convictions, right? And all right, let's give this a fair shake. Do you think that is going on at all? No. All these people wake up. They're all appointed because they've got a vicious, rabid, anti-Trump disposition, and they're in these positions to go get it done. If Jack Smith came out and said, gosh, hey, Mayor, actually, I don't think there's anything here. There's really not a lot of evidence here. You think that way he would go, okay, you're right. I'm going to turn that around and we're just going to leave it at that. Not in a minute.
It differentiates Biden and Pence. So from just a political perspective, it's huge because it's a way of saying there's no evidence that this happened with respect to President Biden or former Vice President Pence.
Again, VP versus president.
Information is not just classified information. It's one of the most sensitive types of classified information, which is war plans involving potential attack on Iran. So from every single aspect of this, if this reporting is accurate and there is this tape recording, there will be an indictment. And it is hard to see how, given all of the evidence that we've been talking about, that there will not be a conviction here. I mean,
yeah. So, all right. So Andrew Weismann, very, very excited about this. Trump's going to be indicted any minute now. Just keep holding your breath. And he might. And there will be a whole slew of consequences for this. I continue to say this. I don't think the Democrats or the people who are bloodthirsty with lust in their hearts to just take out their political enemies, I don't think they understand exactly what they're doing. I think you get one shot at this. Once you go through this, once you cross the Rubicon, and this becomes how the DOJ, the FBI, the DC circuit, and how everybody in this little wheelhouse operates, once you do that once, the system loses its legitimacy. The system expires almost, and people stop believing in it. And that is a very devastating thing for this country. The Republicans, if they're going to survive, will have to respond in kind, and the pendulum will swing both ways. And it might result in Donald Trump sweeping to victory. We'll see. So that, my friends, is the update on Trump. Now we have another shorter Trump segment, but this one was an interesting conversation. Ukraine President Zelensky had a nice sit down, and during his conversation and interview, he shared some concerns. We've got an election coming up here in America, 2024. It might be the same one that we had previously, Trump versus Biden. If everything stays the same, we'll see. And the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, might have some concerns if the balance of power flips. If Trump wins, could be a problem for Ukraine. Trump came in and said he can solve this whole thing relatively quickly. And we know that Joe Biden has been dumping a ton of money into this war. And what happens if that spigot gets shut off? Zelensky, not too happy about it. In fact, this came over from the Wall Street Journal. On exclusive from Zelensky, he says, we're ready for a counteroffensive. And he also discusses other things. He said, we think that we're going to succeed in this, and I don't know how long it's going to take. But in a wide-ranging, hour-long discussion, Zelensky, who's now 45 years old, said he feared U.S. elections next year could bring a less supportive administration to power. Oh, you're kidding me. You mean your sugar daddy, Joe Biden, is not going to just cut you blank check after blank check every friggin' month? And called on the North American Treaty Organization to offer a clear path to membership for Kyiv, which would just be, World War III on full display. He also urged China to try to restrain Russia and said Ukraine urgently needed more U.S.-made Patriot missile defense systems. Zelensky also acknowledged that Russian air superiority on the front lines and said, we need more defenses. We need more Western-supplied weapons for the upcoming campaign. We'd like to have certain things, but, we can't wait for months over here, he says. Says ground forces are stronger. Ukraine backers have provided billions to the military that have been essential to this effort. Zelensky veered from expressions of gratitude for the West to frustration over their reluctance to give Ukraine even more. His statements reflected the balance he must find between pressing for domestic support without pushing allies away. He said if Ukraine can't withstand this, things will get bad. And so the West has helped to train and equip thousands of soldiers to try to strengthen their hand. Ukraine's Western backers recognize that Kyiv's own offensive won't end this war, but they want to demonstrate to Putin that it's futile. Now, the Biden administration, they have committed more than $37 billion in security assistance to Ukraine since the start of this thing. And European allies have followed. But Trump, dun, 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 the current leading Republican contender for the 2024 election, declined last month to say whether he would back Ukraine, saying instead that he would seek to bring a swift end to the war without saying how. Zelensky said he was concerned that any change in the administration could affect aid. He said, in a situation like this, when there is support like we've got, you're afraid of changes. And to be honest, when you mention a change of administration, I feel the same way as any other person. You want changes for the better, but it can also be the other way around. if Trump wins, it's not going to be good. Zelensky said he couldn't understand Trump's claim that he could end the war in 24 hours, as Trump hadn't done so while in office when Russia was already occupying Crimea and parts of eastern Ukraine. Biden has an emotional attachment to Ukraine. I'm sure he does. That has underpinned his administration's support for the country. Trump's presidency came before the full-scale invasion. Says, I'm not sure how Trump would have acted. Well, I'll tell you, Trump says it would have never happened. Still, Ukraine's president said he was encouraged by bipartisan support in the U.S. People like Lindsey Graham say, forget what Americans say. We'll give you anything. And hope that parties in Congress would continue to support Ukraine and pressure any new administration to keep those money flows going. And so Zelensky's a little bit nervous because Joe Biden looks like he can't even stand up most days. He's going, oh man, I really hope there's no more sandbags at his next press event. This is going to be bad for Ukraine. But Trump is out not tripping over sandbags. And he was speaking about this. In fact, one question was, what would you do? This war has been going on and we just keep spending money and more people keep dying. And is there any even hope, possibility of a reasonable solution to this? Or are we just going to keep killing each other until it turns into World War III already?
The war. I don't want that war to continue. And I'll stop that war. Mark my words. I'll stop that war in 24 hours. But we're in a position.
Mr. President, let me ask. Serious question. How do you stop that war in 24 hours?
I know both. And frankly, Zelensky was very good because he was part of the phone call. And he said, he didn't say anything wrong to me, the Democrat. He could have gone and grandstand and said, well, I felt threatened. I felt threatened. He didn't. I get along with him. I get along with Putin. It would have been much easier to stop it before it started. Putin would have never done this. It would have been much easier. Right now, it's a mess. Now they're hitting Kiev and they're hitting all sorts of things that weren't supposed to be hit. The country is being decimated. By the way, the deaths are far more than their report. You know, when they say 9 apartment houses got knocked down and 2 people got hurt. No, hundreds of people died. The numbers are much different than what you're being told. I will get them into a room and they will, and I know an exact way. Number one, you tell one, you're not going to get anything unless you make a deal. You tell the other one, they're going to get a lot unless you make a deal. And you just sit them and you put them in, and you have to make a determination. And I'm telling you, within 24 hours, that whole thing will be settled. It'll be settled. And you need the power of the Oval Office. You do. You can't just walk in and say, oh, I'm going to settle the deal. You need the power of the presidency. It was a war that should have never, ever started. It's a horrible war. It's a vicious,
it is brutal. It's
awful.
Saw
today where missiles are going into cities, in this case, Kiev, and you see the school children going to school and missiles are following them. The whole thing is horrible.
It's just brutal.
I will
the
have
videos
that settled
brutal.
in 24 hours. People say, oh, you can't. It's just like when I hear DeSantis, when I hear the sanctimonious come and say, we need 8 years. Again, if he needs 8 years, don't vote for him. I'll have that. This country will be hopping in 6 months, and a lot of it's going to do with energy and energy costs. It'll be hopping in 6 months and less than 6 months, but it'll be back.
Thank you, Iowa, for being.
All right, sounds good. I mean, 6 months, 24 hours, I'd like it. You know, that'd be nice stuff. Now, it is a complicated situation, and in the other front that is developing, apparently this was also taking place in the waters around China in the South China Sea. It says a Chinese warship here, this came from the Balkan Independent, a Chinese warship nearly rams a U.S. destroyer in the Taiwan Strait. Very important strait. The PRC allegedly disrupts a Canada-U.S. exercise in the South China Sea. A Chinese warship within 130 meters of the USS Chunghong destroyer. You can see this. And the 2 ships there, pretty close proximity, and they're just squeaking by each other right there. Woof. So whether it's balloons or ships, we have multiple fronts developing around the world as the elections come to a head. Donald Trump saying, we'll solve the whole thing, and, you know, give me a week. We'll take care of it. We'll see. Of course, we'll continue to cover. Thanks for liking this video and joining us as we do. All right, my friends, and we've got one final segment. And then we'll jump in and we'll see what you guys have to say about all of this and more. Critical January 6 intelligence information may have been withheld. This is something we've talked about a lot here on this channel. If the FBI had so many embedded informants and Homeland Security had different CHSs, why didn't they know more about this planned violent insurrection? All of these Proud Boys and all of these Oath Keepers all hanging around to insurrect America. If there was informants embedded throughout these different groups, why didn't the FBI know about it and communicate it back down to the Capitol so that they could prepare for it? Well, turns out maybe some of that intelligence has been withheld. This story came over from Just the News, and they give us a title. They tell us that a lawmaker named Barry Loudermilk, who we're going to hear from, says that people of interest may have withheld critical intel. And this story matches something that we've heard from somebody else named Stephen Sun, who wrote this book, Courage Under Fire. A good book. I recommend it. There's some good details about what happened that day. And I think it's a pretty fair read. And he referred us back over to these intelligence reports that up until January 6th, he was being delivered that really showed that there was no inkling of violence. In fact, they were saying it's low to not probable in terms of there being any issues. So the story goes that Barry Loudermilk has been investigating this. Here's what he said. He said the lawmaker leading the investigation into the security failures, this guy, says that his team has identified, quote, people of interest, who may have played a role in suppressing intelligence that forewarned of violence on January 6th. He gave a wide-ranging interview. I've got a clip of it. He said the Capitol Police Intelligence Unit had received days and weeks in advance a significant amount of detailed intelligence that identified specific extremist groups and the tactics they planned to use. And we're going to read through the reports, and we don't see any of that. Those red flags were not passed up the chain, including to Chief Stephen Sun. Didn't get it, so that they could make adjustments inside and outside the Capitol. So why not? Why was that not provided? Loudermilk said, we do know that the security failure began with an intelligence failure. We have uncovered that there was significant intelligence that was provided to the intelligence division of the Capitol Police starting in the beginning of December all the way up through the morning of the 6th. Some of that intelligence actually laid out what the operational plan was for some of the extreme groups who were to enter the Capitol, take over Congress, and even kill some of the police. What? This made it to the intelligence division, but it never made it any further. Even the chief of the Capitol Police was not made aware of that level of intelligence. What? The person responsible for the Capitol Police, the chief? He didn't get notified about some extreme groups that were going to kill Congress and Capitol Police officers? What? Loudermilk said his House Administration Investigative Subcommittee has made substantial progress in identifying specific individuals who may have either mishandled or suppressed the intelligence. They've started to ask questions. Who was involved in this? Was it one person that squelched this? Was it a massive failure? Was it incompetence? Did somebody want to suppress this? There's actually some people of interest that we're talking to. We're looking to see where the failure was. Loudermilk said getting those answers are key to better protecting the Capitol. The frontline officers, they fought, but they were ill-equipped. They were not prepared. Just the News reported last year that other officers were there, and the chain of command was very complicated. And Stephen Sun reported that he got various special intelligence assessments, and here is a summation of some of them. Let me get this PDF open. Here we go. This is what was being distributed to the Capitol Hill Police and to other law enforcement agencies in the days up to January 6th. And you'll notice that the date is actually wrong on this. And Stephen Sun comments about this in his book. He says, they forgot to update the date. It was the 21st, as we remember, on that day. But he says, On Wednesday, the bottom line up front, this one came out on the 3rd. On Wednesday, January 6th, the House is going to gather. There are some representatives who are going to challenge the votes. The Intelligence and Interagency Division is currently tracking several protests slated to take place. Some protesters have indicated they plan to be armed. Uh-oh. There's also indication that white supremacist groups may be attending the protests. Uh-oh. Detailed information is also here. Now, they give us some various event summaries, and they tell us the various dates. They say we have expected protest overview. It's expected the Proud Boys will be there. They intend to wear plain clothes. Some of them have been charged with other offenses. Many confrontations occurred after the rallies ended. And so when you fast forward through this, it's just a summary of all the different people who are going to be there. And what we'll see is there's several of these reports. And I wanted to just kind of flip through these and show you them before we read through Stephen Sund's analysis of them, right? There's all sorts of permits here. We had Stop the Steal protest here, Grassy Area number 8, Women for a Great America, Virginia Freedom Keepers were going to be there. Donald, you're fired, right? This is not a Donald Trump friendly group. They were going to be there on January 6th. They were presumably in the crowd. We don't know much about them. Refuse Fascism was also there. They're planning a counter protest. Don't know much about that. How many people were there? Did they go into the buildings? Shut down DC. No specific plans for a counter protest, but might be there. They Them Collective. How many? Well, we don't know who they them are or what that's about, but apparently 200 to 300 people. All of them located at different locations with different traffic cuts and the following: streets are closed and so on. Now, they say the overall analysis is as follows. Due to the intense political environment, the threat of disruptive actions and or violence cannot be ruled out. There could be the propensity to attract white supremacist militia and promote violence. It may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement and the general public alike, right? So this information is current now as of January 3rd. You see this is 2021. So this seems like, okay, maybe we're getting a little bit more intelligence here. This is the overall analysis. And so it's starting to, maybe it's heating up a little bit. Kind of sounds like it's a little bit more concerning. Could be violent, maybe. And this report comes out, this one's a little bit further, December 30th. So the ones that actually came before the 3rd were even more benign. Here you go. This one was from just a few days before. On the 30th, they said no group is expected to march and all are planning to stay in their designated areas. Not a big deal at all. Pro-Trump protest, 5,000 participants. No group is planning to step out. Stop the Steal has posted their thing. And so it seems like everything is going to be basically okay up until that last report. And they're just adding new people who are going to show up on that day. Again, even on December 30th, they, them showing up, Shut Down DC was showing up, Refuse Fascism was showing up, all these other groups. And I think the report before that one was December 23rd. Bottom line up front. The intelligence community is tracking several protests. Here's the overview. Many of the confrontations have already ended at previous events. All right. So these are the documents that we're referencing. Now, when we go back over to Stephen Sund, this is what he writes in his book. This came from Stephen Sund, Courage Under Fire. And we just heard that there were even more intelligence reports about how this could get more violent and Capitol Hill police could be under attack. Now, he gives us this last paragraph that we just read a little bit from. And this is from his book. He said that this was the last paragraph we just read. This may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement. There are a lot of protests scheduled on January 6th and so on. That's directly from the report I just shared. Then he says, many have focused on this final paragraph as being damning. They see, oh my gosh, wow, dangerous situation. specifically because it indicated that unlike the previous post-election protests, the targets of the pro-Trump supporters are not necessarily the counter-protesters, as they were previously, but it's Congress, right? We're not targeting counter-protesters, we're targeting Congress. He says, well, that's ridiculous. It's critical to understand that the target of every protest that occurs on Capitol Hill is Congress. In other words, everybody targets Congress. That's why they're there on Capitol Hill. That is not anything that stands out. That is why groups come to Capitol Hill to protest. People have read this paragraph and construed the term, this is the Capitol Hill chief of police former, construed that term target to mean the type of target to target violence. When considered in the context of the intelligence, we were anticipating a large First Amendment demonstration, so these words did not raise red flags for us. It's also important to note that even though the report states that targets of the pro-Trump supporters are not necessarily counter-protesters, this section of the assessment was incorrect. While a small percentage of the participants at MAGA rallies have engaged in physical altercations, the focus of the event was the Supreme Court, not counter-protesters, and even Assistant Chief Pittman acknowledged this. So in reading the final paragraph, Stephen Sun says there was no new alarming intelligence that was even provided. That didn't change anything. We had already anticipated some protesters might be armed. The presence of armed participants had already occurred during previous marches. We'd already dealt with it. We already had a contingency plan where we dealt with armed protesters on Capitol Hill. That's not new. During previous MAGA events, people had also expressed a sense of desperation over the elections. That wasn't new either. We had seen altercations with counter-protesters between Trump supporters, and we anticipated this would occur on the 6th as well. That was one of the reasons why I had been pushing for expedited equipment. So now, coinciding, he says, with the final intelligence assessment that was on January 4th, there was a second document also dated on the 4th. This was another 27-page detailed report about what groups would be there. Said that it's important to note, this is on the 4th, it's important to note for all the groups expected to demonstrate on Wednesday, January 6th, the report assessed the probability of acts of civil disobedience and arrest, here you go, as being remote and improbable, right there. Final reports on January 4th. Probability of acts of civil disobedience and arrests as remote to improbable. Even the two demonstrations specifically referenced in the last paragraph of the intelligence, the Woman of America First and the Stop the Steal demos, they were now assessed as remote and highly improbable. The report also stated that the Secretary of Homeland Security has not issued an elevated or imminent alert at this time, and saying that the intelligence community did not possess any information showing that a coordinated attack might occur on January 6th. Nobody had any idea. He said, I received this report from the intelligence at 10:06 Monday, January 4th. I got it again verbatim January 5th, and I got it again verbatim January 6th. It was also distributed to the office of the Sergeant at Arms. And then on Monday, everything went back to work. I went to go get the riot helmets and try to figure out those. So DHS, who has dozens, okay, Department of Homeland Security, dozens. The Proud Boys defense team, they were speculating as many as 50 HSI, Homeland Security Investigation, CHSs involved in this. And there's no imminent alert? I mean, I thought the Proud Boys were coordinating an insurrection. I thought the Oath Keepers had quick reaction force teams, and they were moving in stack formation. All of the hysterics. Homeland Security, no alerts. Nobody thought anything bad was going to happen. Or at least they reported that. And they were preparing for possible situations like they'd done before. But it was remote and highly improbable. Very curious. Maybe because they didn't want it fortified. Maybe because they weren't monitoring the right groups. Should have been monitoring the FBI. Stop the Steal was going to be nice and peaceful. FBI agents, though, like Ray Epps or other informants for the feds, like Ray Epps, is irrelevant. If they were the ones who were being monitored, the likelihood of violence would be actually probable. But they'll continue to cover it up. We'll continue to follow. Thank you for liking and sharing this video with us, with your friends, and joining us. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. All right, my friends. Well, that is it for us on the day. We got some good segments in there, some good updates. January 6th intelligence being withheld, not a surprise. Stephen Sun is corroborating reports that Barry Loudermilk is obtaining through his investigation. And we see that Zelensky is concerned that Donald Trump will win. So are a lot of other people, like James Comey. He's a little bit quivering in his boots that Trump might win and unleash an insurrection at the FBI. Trump's detective got suspended from Manhattan's office, which is good. And FBI is going to be held in contempt. And the proceedings are going to be back here on Thursday. And of course, we hope you subscribe. Thank you for liking this video as we come back here and of course continue to cover all of this and more. But now, my friends, let's hear from you and let's see what you have to say about all of this. We're going to check in on locals and on YouTube and on Rumble. And I think our amazing mods are helping down, clip the place up for us, which is very nice. Thank you to everybody who's helping to keep this train on the track. Now, this was a super chat that came in over the weekend. We did a member-only stream, and we talked a lot about actually AA and the 12 steps. So this one came in from Ray K. I missed it. He said, Freedom Session is an amazing 12-step centered program. Changed my life after 45 years of insanity. That was from Ray K. And that was a good conversation we had. And Jackie sent this one and says, love you, Rob. Many blessings to you and to your endeavors. And thank you, Jackie, for sending that one in over the lovely, lovely weekend. Had a great conversation there. Also, Patrick Parker today. What's up, Patrick? He brought in 5 new membos. Woo, woo. That means our member-only morning streams are going to be lit. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to grab the Telegram link, which is where you can join us for our after party, which is also going to be taking place here in a minute. Thank you, Patrick. Cheryl K's coming in. Alban M. We got Frezio is here. Memetic Militia and Gaia is here in the house, courtesy of our friend Patrick Parker. And thank you very much, Patrick. We had another one come in from Spuds. Spud says, if Trump ends the war, how is that bad for Ukraine? I think they would say that it would be good for them if they got all of their territory, like all of it. Anything that is less than that is a loss. I think they want all of their territory, and I think if Jake Sullivan is an indicator, they also want him in prison. Putin says, peace sells, but who's buying? A great Megadeth album. Man, I miss Megadeth. I listen to a lot of Megadeth. Good stuff from Spuds. Little nostalgia there. Thank you, Spuds. Ian Mack says, what is to stop them from just an ongoing investigating this thing till the end of time? Nothing. Ian, you've got it, my friend. Bingo, you nailed it. Nothing. That's the beauty of it. Well, there's a lot to investigate, you know. I mean, different investigations can take years. The Durham investigation took 4 years, so it could take a long time. Fred Pedamonte in the house. What's up, Fred, with his rascally dog Johnny? Says, why hasn't the FBI said this today on the investigation? Well, because they don't think it's pertinent to us. And I think that the only reason we're hearing anything about it is because of James Comey and the Oversight Committee. Otherwise, this would have been buried until the end of time. Good to see you, Fred. Hope you're doing well. Patrick Parker says, we love Raskin. Bless his bald head. Indeed. He's got cancer, and cancer sucks, man. Cancer just sucks. Cancer sucks. And so, shout out to Jamie Raskin. Hopefully he gets better quickly, recovers quickly, so that we can criticize him for all of his idiotic policy ideas. All right. So thank you, Patrick, for that one. We had this one. Patrick says, okay, I'm curious now. When someone gets sworn in at a congressional hearing, is it just more of an elaborate form of a jury trial? I would say it's less elaborate. I would say it's more idiotic than a jury trial. Jury trial has some structure and form and a purpose to it. You're trying to get something out of it, either a conviction or an acquittal or a verdict or something. But you get something out of it. Congress is they're just like, I don't know. It's like listening to people give presentations to Congress. It reminds me of I think it's kind of like show and tell almost. That's what it is. It's show and tell is I think a good example. It's you bring in your pet whatever and you show it to the rest of the class. Hey, this is what I've got. Oh, and they ask you questions and they pretend like they're angry and they make political points and they get to ask you questions. Or, it'd be like defending a thesis if you want to escalate it from kindergarten era. But that's really what it is. It's just a probing, and yes, they're under oath and technically you could charge them if they lied, but they don't ever charge anybody. I mean, like the big tech people, they get brought in all the time and they just lie their pants off and nobody does anything about it. Patrick says, second, if a juror does not pay attention, should they not be removed? Well, yeah, in jury panels, they would get scolded, right? A judge would scold them and they would be in trouble. Wake up, and if they're problematic, they'd be removed and the alternate would be replaced. But we have a system for that. But that's the people in the jury panel. You're asking about Congress people. That's like what happens if the judge falls asleep. Can you remove the judge? Sort of. Maybe not. Sometimes the judge, maybe not. Sometimes you can't really do much about that. You just got to barrel through it. Michael Allen Hughes says, karma is frightening to those who are treasonous. Yeah, he was a little bit nervous there. He's kind of shaking. Oh gosh, I really hope he doesn't win. Yeah, I'm sure you don't, James Comey. Gosh, give me a break. All right, thank you for that one, Michael Allen Hughes. Hey, it's Alan Harkin. What's up, Alan? Says, thank you, Alan. Very generous. Always appreciate it. Says, awesome show. It is always heartwarming to see Democrats make fools of themselves. Thanks, Jamie. You are truly an asset in the battle for truth. We're very proud of you. Alan, that's such a nice thing to say, my man. Thank you. And do you have a little puppy in that picture? Is that a puppy? Oh, gosh. We're having a lot of puppy talk on our channel here, especially on our locals, because there may or may not be a puppy decision that has to be made sometime soon. But thank you, Alan. Very generous. Looks like a very handsome boy sitting right there next to you. Very cool. And I appreciate you being here, Alan. You're always so generous. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, that was a good one. Jamie really stepped in it big time. And I don't think there's going to be many clips about that, but there should be, because he walked out like super bravado. Oh, these Republicans are idiots. They don't even know what they're talking about. This investigation's been closed. Well, then why did Comer just say it was open? He's like, what? It's open? What? What are you talking about? Yeah, sorry, Jamie. All right. Here, this one came in from Cat We All Just Get Along. And there's a kitty cat over there, too. This one says, go get him, Rob. Thank you for being here. Can't we all get along? For 4 months, man. 4-month membership. Man, that's pretty, I'd say things are getting pretty serious about now. A Bad Poet says, if Comey gets the form, how do they get all the past year reports about Biden? Or will they need to expose the DOJ much before much else can happen? If Comey gets the form, well, I mean, what they're trying to do, I think, is the way you do criminal prosecutions and investigations, they always need an in, right? You always get an in somehow. Then they get the DNA from the trash. They get the warrant. Then they get access to the house. Then once they get into the house, then they find the murder weapon. Then the murder weapon gives them another warrant to search everything, right? All of your software, hardware, computer stuff, place of business, girlfriends, everything. So you got to find that entry point. You get the DNA from the garbage, and then boom, the rest is spiraling out of control. I'd say this is the DNA in the garbage. This is the first step that will allow them to get access to other things. Good question from a Bad Poet. Patrick Parker is here. Thank you, Patrick. Says, I wonder how Antifa, BLM, and the entire Democratic Party would act if the 81 or red and white, depending on how you know them, just show up at one rally the extreme left is at. Is that an 81? Or red and white, depending on how you know them, just show up at one rally the extreme left is at. So I'm not familiar. I think you're referencing a group, but I don't know what that group is. So it would be a counter protest? I guess I don't know. But probably not well. You know, if it's an oppositional group, I can't imagine it'd go well. But thank you, Patrick. I think I'm having a Raskin moment today. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm like Jamie Raskin right now. But P-Dubs Designs is here. Says Ray Epps' handler laughingly calls him Roy Epps. Roy Epps rearranged is called Psyopers. Psyoper. I like it. That's good. No, that's good. It makes total sense. Roy Epps is Psyoper. I like it. Good. I like that, Ray, P-Dub Designs. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here. We had this one from Dolphin Fan is the man. Invited 5 new members into our amazing community. Thank you, Dolphin Fan. Very much appreciated. So generous. Invited Alex B. Welcome. We got CAM Postmenopausals joining us. Welcome. I hear that's an interesting, change. Hope it's going well. Mark LaForest is here, and Marms is in the house. Good to see everybody, courtesy of our friend. Dolphin Fan is the man. We got Trust 2 Kids is here. Says, thanks, Rob, for another great show. Thank you, Trust 2 Kids. Patrick Parker says, K-Bear 101 app on your device. I don't know what that one is either. Patrick, you're... K-Bear 101 is a radio station. Okay, so K-Bear 101 is a radio station. So get the app on your device, and it is Idaho's #1 rock station. Oh, okay. So you get the app, and it's probably a bunch of bangers on there, like Megadeth. I get it. I get it now. All right, so Megadeth. Cool. Yeah, I'm going to have to probably dig out Megadeth again. I really dug Megadeth. I mean, I listened to them a lot. Good stuff. I like melodic metal. I like melody. I like melodic death metal. I'm a big fan of that genre. In fact, there's a lot of Norwegian bands in that area that are great. Like Norther is another good one. Yeah, there's a lot that I used to listen to in that genre. Norther, I think I listened to a lot too. Not exactly like Megadeth. Megadeth is a little bit more vocally. Norther and a lot of the other, I think I call them like electronic mellow death. They're more screamy, very screamy, but I like the melody. And I actually don't like I don't like vocals in a lot of music. So I like that the scream kind of acts as an instrument and not a person's voice, which oftentimes can be annoying and tedious when they're singing a melody. All right, anyways, thank you for that. Nice tip, K-Bear, from Patrick Parker. And Steel Stargazer says, yo, G, you rock. Well, thank you, Steel. Steel Stargazer in the house. And I think you rock right back, G. I'm appreciated. I appreciate your super chat here today. Okay, and Patrick Parker is educating me. Thank you, Patrick. He says 81 or red and white represents Hell's Angels. There it is. From Donut Mind Me. Thank you for clipping that for us. Says 81 or red, white represents Hell's Angels. All right, good to know. I learned something today. Yeah, thank you for that. Red and white. Yeah, okay, cool. The red and white. That's the club's nickname. Yeah. Cool. All right. Yeah. Well, what would happen if they showed up at an Antifa rally or a BLM rally? I don't know. I don't think it would go well. I don't think it would go well. I think it would be interesting, but I'm not sure if they would get, I don't know. Would they get along? Probably. I mean, I don't know what they would do. They'd probably all just, I don't know, follow each other on Instagram, take selfies together, share their poetry, gardening tips. Hey guys, check out this new soil I've got, my garden. You'll never believe the size of these jalapenos I've got cooking. I don't know. All right, and so that, my friends, is it for us on the day. Now, we are going over to our after party, and we would love to see you there at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're going to go hang out for a little bit, talk about the show, see what you guys have to say about this. And so come and join us, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you're a new member on YouTube, You can still join us for the after party, but you got to do it on Telegram, which is where we're going to continue on. So grab the Telegram link. It's in the community section on YouTube. And we would love to see you over there, where we'll be going in a short minute. Also, don't forget to get your field of greens. Eat your vegetables, my friends. And tell your moms to eat your vegetables, and your siblings and your children. Everybody should eat their vegetables. We want everybody to be alive and well for a very long time, and you can do that by being nutritious. So go to fieldofgreens.com, save 15% with code Robert. Also, if you'd like to get the mind map action going, if your mind is just bursting and a little discordant, you don't have a lot of organization going on out there, you might want to try a mind map. It's how I stay organized. spotlightlawyer.com/mindmap. Great tool. Use it in your content creation. Go wild. It's a lot of fun. Thank you to the mods who mod down the fort for us. I think Vientikiss it's Monday. I think he's got other business to attend to. Heartbreaking, but all right, we'll allow it. K-Bean's in the house, Just Cause. We got Playin' Hooky, our friend Ronnie Cole. Zulu is here. Beyond Geostars, Zach Nichols, our friend John Allen, Janek909, Dog Digger, and Donut Mind Me, clipping hard for us. Thank you, Donut Mind Me, today. I appreciate that one. Sleepy Dog Lee on Twitter, and our friend Geegum Geegum over on Locals, along with Nathan N810, memeing down the fort for us. And we're very appreciative of everybody who helps to keep this train on the tracks. But that, my friends, is it for us on the day. If you're a member, we'll see you back here in the morning for our members-only stream. But if not, then we'll see you back here at the same time, same place to do this all again. It's going to be a Tuesday, and I'm sure it's going to be a busy one. And we would love to see you here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.